Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of AdVenchr into Tech with me, Ben Charlton.
And Jasper Manol.
Today we're joined by an incredible guy. He has scaled and traversed various different technical stacks, moved from Baghdad to the UK in a really turbulent time, ended up the CTO of an AI-powered fintech business. Welcome to the podcast, Oras Al-Kubaisi.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. No problem at all. I mean, look, I think kind of one of the first things that sort of really intrigued me and to sort of kind of dive in at the deep end, you were learning to code in a time when kind of in Baghdad, when we were middle of the war, there was kind of rolling blackouts and all that sort of stuff. What was that like?
Well, that's a very interesting question. It was a war zone. But if we go into the details, into the learning and the struggle just to get the time, there was basically no electricity that time. And the internet connection, I remember we had one internet connection shared between probably 50 households.
Wow.
So that time what I was doing, I was sleeping in a reverse way. So I would probably sleep during the day, wake up around 12 a.m. in the night, where I have some batteries charging enough till 5 or 6 a.m. That's the time when everyone is asleep and I get a decent internet connection to work with.
So you literally became nocturnal to learn to code.
Potentially, yeah.
And then obviously you moved to the UK. When was that? Around 2010?
2010, yes.
Perfect. And then obviously kind of moving into the kind of UK workforce. I mean, I know that's how we met in the first place, but how was that transition kind of going from, and obviously there's stigma attached to kind of Afghanistan and things like that. How was that?
Well, actually, everyone was welcoming, and
Amazing.
it was really good experience for me coming to the UK. I think the struggle in the beginning was the language, of course. Before that, I was like reading and writing in English, but speaking, that's just a different category. And I still remember my first day in the UK. So I went to the student accommodation, and the receptionist said, I said hi, and he said, "You all right?" And I immediately thought, do I look sick? And then I learned this is the British way of saying, how are you? So from that, learning the language, learning the culture, the university itself, doing I came to the UK to do my second master's in Kingston University. That was really good. And during my study, I took 2 business modules. The first one was human resources, understanding how to improve the culture, what kind of learning do you need to set in the environment and in the organization.
Yeah.
And the second one was entrepreneurship. And from that, I got the motivation to why not doing my own business?
Yeah, exactly.
That time, I took something I struggled with. When I came to the UK, there are probably endless types of cuisines in the UK.
Yeah.
And I love food so much, so I wanted to try everything. But reading the menu, I couldn't understand really what kind of food is that.
Sure.
And I was thinking, what if I create a tablet menu?
Okay.
So I got to the restaurant, I have an iPad showing me a photo of every food, maybe some kind of reviews, just like Amazon, and give me everything I need to decide which one I'm trying today. So I did the prototype, and in 3 to 4 months, I started going to restaurants, trying to convince them to use it. But obviously, there are so many challenges rather than the tech in that. So I failed in that, learned my lesson, and it was really good start for me, at least to understand
Amazing.
The tech around here. Then we talked.
Yeah.
And you placed me in World Stores, which was a dream job that time.
Amazing.
Great startup, great people. Everyone was welcoming and helping, and that was my commercial journey in the UK.
So you stayed there for a while and kind of got promoted a few times, and then moved on to doing some consulting and doing your own things as well. Yeah. What was that kind of journey of kind of discovery before you then decided to go and do your own thing again? Yeah. What did you have to learn? What was kind of that journey like to then go into AI and everything else? How did that work?
So by 2019, I'm a daily reader of the Hacker News.
Okay.
I read that on a daily basis. And I started noticing the pattern of NLP emerging that time. And Spacey came in, they started probably doing it in a lot better way than compared to before. There is kind of a framework that you can follow, that you can read and improve. They had some libraries in order to get you started. And that time I bought my first PC with a GPU, but not for gaming, but for AI. And I started practicing. Then I joined a company. They had really big ambition into having AI to analyze the data and giving insights. It was in the patient safety space, but there was lots of regulations when it comes to that. So we tried to do something, but unfortunately, it didn't work out because of the regulations, and there are so many strict rules around patient safety data.
And then you move, obviously you then started Job Description AI, and kind of this was sort of the next step. Starting your own business in AI, I mean, it seems, as someone that's not an engineer, it just seems like a minefield of how you choose the right technology. Is it something you build yourself? Do you leverage the existing kind of frameworks that are out there? What is it, that kind of thought process around creating and kind of then choosing your own technology and dealing with that process? What's the process that you go through for that?
That's a really good question. So there are two ways of doing it. You either have your own data, but you need like a huge amount of data, and then you train your own model to do that. And then there is now the new way with generative AI, such as OpenAI and the others, where you have the framework, you have the model trained already, and you either create an API in order to leverage that, or you fine tune the large language model to make it tailored to your requirements. Now, obviously, this will save you a lot of time in terms of development, testing, and like even getting the business approval for it to move forward. However, it comes with its own limitations. And these limitations would be understanding that language model. You don't own the data anymore. You have to fine tune, give it. There are lots of privacy improvement that has been happening in the last few weeks, even with OpenAI and Azure OpenAI as well. But still, you don't have everything on premise. You still need to call the cloud. So the way I see it now going to the future, OpenAI and the others, is just like AWS when they started, moving from bare metal to have a cloud that you just use the components and do your own platform.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So you then you went through this process of kind of picking the technology for Job Description AI. You've started kind of another business. Kind of where are you up to with that right now?
Well, there is actually a funny story behind Job Description AI.
Okay.
My theory was I will use that just as a side project so I can learn from it.
Okay.
So I did the prototype and I decided to put it on Product Hunt that time, just to see if there's a market for something like this.
Yeah.
I ended up the fifth product of the day without any network or connections that time. And then a few days later, two companies reached out saying they are really interested in having a demo. And I thought, well, if this is not a sign, then what a sign would look like. And from there, I decided to take it as a business. So I left my contract after that and start focusing on it full time.
Amazing.
The learning was it's a B2B. And this was probably my biggest learning from Job Description AI. B2B is really hard. Because like the decision making is not one person most of the time. There are chain of approvals that you need to get, and businesses are busy with ton of other stuff rather than to decide of using a new technology that is being done by a startup. And it's probably going to take between 3 to 6 months to get one customer.
Yeah.
And that is really hard for like a bootstrap startup. I didn't raise money. I was basically working on the business account that I had that I gained from contracting.
Yeah.
And I would think like if I ever decided to do B2B again, then there has to be money raising because you need to live as long as you can with the startup, just having enough churn for 2 to 3 years to build the trust, talk to customers, learn and adapt, and of course iterate.
I think it seems like a pretty common thread that there's so many businesses out there that operate in that kind of negative space for so long until they're able to break even and then obviously generate revenue or at least generate profit, I should say. Yeah, and I mean, look, we see it all the time where there's companies that unfortunately they fall over because they just haven't been able to make money in time before they run out of cash. Obviously, you then moved on, or I say moved on. You then started to join, you joined Figg as a senior AI engineer.
Yes.
First kind of proper commercial role as a kind of senior AI engineer at a time when it's probably the hottest topic on everyone's kind of lips. I'm kind of intrigued as to sort of what the sort of that transition then looks like to go from a senior AI engineer to CTO within a fintech business in one of the hottest spaces.
Well, needless to say that I work 12 hours a day. But it's for good. Thing is, just because it's a really hot space right now, there are lots to do and there are lots to improve.
Yeah.
Of course, the challenge is just like any other company is how to make AI personalized to your use case.
Yeah.
And this is what we are challenged with, really. And the other challenge with Figg is we are trying to cover all the investment assets.
Yeah.
So there are many companies or apps that you can use to connect your bank account and saving.
Yeah.
But we are adding pension.
Yeah.
We're adding physical assets like collectible. So if you have an expensive watch or expensive handbag, you can just take a photo for it, and we will tell you the brand, model, and the estimated price for it.
Okay.
And very soon we are adding the car section.
Okay.
So if you have a car, again, you take a photo for it. We'll give you the valuation of that car.
Perfect. So just so kind of we can sort of clarify here, what is it that Figg are actually? What does Figg do? What is that kind of? Do you want to just give us a bit of an overarching kind of view on that?
Sure. It's a wealth management app for the mass affluent.
Okay.
And mass affluent is anyone with investment or assets from 100,000 to 1 million.
Okay.
They don't qualify to get a private bank account.
Okay.
And we want to serve them by giving them insights, and they can see all their portfolio in one place. And what they get from that, like if you can go to the internet and read daily news about the financial and maybe search for something about your investment or the stocks that you have.
Yeah.
But what we aim to do is once you open the app, you get a news tailored to your portfolio and tailored to your watch list. And then we give you insight why this was up or down in the last 2 or 3 months.
Fine.
How does it compare to something else? We give you insights about what kind of sectors you are investing in. So maybe you have, like, let's say Microsoft, Nvidia, and Meta stock, but then, and you have like 50 other stocks in your portfolio. We tell you the diversification of your stock sectors, where do you invest, and even in terms of the regions, like how many of them are in the UK, how many are in the US or different regions. And then finally, and I think this is one of the most important insights that we provide, is the risk factor of your portfolio as a whole portfolio.
Interesting. I think it's one of the things that fintech's an area that we've done quite a bit of work in. You talk to a lot of the companies out there, and every investor is keen to understand what the kind of ESG metrics look like around their portfolio. You know, what regions, as you said, the diversification of that.
Yeah, ESG is covered as well, by the way. So we give you, like, on the spectrum, where do you sit in terms of the ESG.
I mean, I think these days it's certainly one of the most important things for a lot of investors and for a lot of kind of fund managers and fund managers.
Yeah. And this is updating in real time. Every time you have something new in your portfolio, or if you sold some of your stocks, this updates in real time. So you don't need to go to any other platform in order to understand what will happen now that I changed my portfolio. Gotcha. It's all happening in real time.
So obviously kind of AI within Figg then, what's the kind of the next step for you? Obviously, I know it's something that's transformed the way the business works, but what's the next thing on the list for you guys?
The next thing is creating investment copilot.
Gotcha.
So now if you go to ChatGPT or GPT-4, you start asking questions, you need to give a context of everything you're asking. Yeah. We are making it as a copilot based on your portfolio, which is anonymized, by the way. We don't expose any user information. Everything we do is privacy first.
Gotcha.
So we just get whatever you have in your portfolio in terms of the ticker and the names, and then we give that context to AI, and then you can start interacting with as a copilot to ask questions like, One of the use cases we aim to do next year
Yeah.
is in the Copilot, maybe you upload a report, and then it will tell you how that report and the results from that report is impacting your portfolio.
Oh, okay. So, because one of the things that we've kind of spoken about recently is that AI is only, or certainly generative AI and kind of that side of things, is only ever as good as the person that's inputting those commands into it and kind of and the prompts that go with it.
Yeah.
How does that differ with a Copilot? How does that work?
That's a really good question. So the Copilot will decide the context for you.
Fine. Okay.
So you don't need, imagine like Google search.
Yeah.
When you search, you need to like understand the terms that you need to search for in order to get accurate results.
Yeah.
We define the terms for you in the Copilot.
Fine. Okay, that makes more sense. So it's basically trying to do as much of the work for you without kind of you having to really understand or be an expert in that field.
Exactly. You just ask questions.
When you say Copilot, I'm assuming you essentially mean a chatbot,
A chatbot. Yes.
a personalized chatbot.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But with more with more inputs. So you can attach PDFs. You can add a URL. So if there's a piece of news that is mentioning your stock and you want to understand the impact from that, you can just paste the URL and ask questions about it.
Okay.
And that would be, the answer will be tailored and customized to your own portfolio and your own experience.
So obviously fintech's kind of moved a long way since open banking and PSD2 regs changed, and kind of you could hook all your accounts together and get a single sort of report on things, which was what a lot of people were selling.
Yeah.
It sounds like Figg are taking that one step further and then kind of allowing you to attach everything that fundamentally sits within your world from a financial perspective.
Correct.
Perfect.
So it's open finance, not just open.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously finance is always a security conscious world, and yet it still seems like the finance world has kept up with the AI adoption that other spaces have seen as well. Why is that? Because it took them so long to open your banking records and things like that, and kind of why is it now suddenly accelerated?
I think the open banking has helped in that a lot.
Okay.
Because you have access right now via API. You don't need to enter your username or password or expose your accounts, and that definitely helped. And hopefully, when there is like some regulations and APIs for open finance, it will be even better.
I think for me the interesting takeaway is your first job in AI, or your first commercial job, obviously at Figg.
Yeah.
You got it without technically any commercial AI experience, right? All of your AI experience up until that point would have been from your personal project. Like,
yes.
What was your actual process to learning? Because you went from PHP to architecture to obviously AI and then CTO.
Yeah.
What was the process of learning to be able to give you to be able to even get that role at Figg in the first place? How did you go about learning it, and how did you apply it at interview or in day-to-day life?
Really good question. So I always keep an eye on the technology, see what are the new frameworks or languages. So there was Golang that started emerging probably 10 years ago. I didn't start learning it from the beginning, but after a few years, definitely I had a look and just did some kind of personal projects just to understand how it could be used. And then I kept doing that for other languages. The ones that I see good use cases for, I stick with more, and I kept for a long time, such as Python. So I only started Python actually just for the NLP, to create some projects. But then I saw the potential with it and all the machine learning libraries available, and then even APIs like Fast API or Flask or Django, and I kept using it for a good time.
When you were making that transition from development to AI, obviously, I'm assuming you interviewed with other places other than Figg. Did you find that not having commercial experience, obviously in that sense, obviously you had job description AI, but it's a side project or a pet project?
It was actually a full-time startup.
Full-time startup?
Yeah.
Okay, fair. My question was going to be then, did you find that there was ever, at interview, hiring managers had a bias towards people with commercial experience or like doing it in a job, or did you not find that?
I don't think so. I think the challenge was having a startup and coming back to the market. That was a challenge because some companies would think, well, you have this entrepreneurial spirit, so maybe you're not going to stick around for a long time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that was the challenge, but not the experience with AI, because when you work practically with AI for a startup or like even a serious side project, you would learn a lot. So most of my learnings were when I started doing demos and talking to customers with job description AI. They will ask questions like, okay, this is good, but how about if I can do that? One of the features was suggesting skills. And that was with Ben. So we had a demo and he said, yeah, great having the requirements and qualifications, but can I have these skills for the job? And that was the feature that I developed.
Fair enough.
So learning and iterating, talking to customers was the key factor in learning AI and seeing more use cases.
More real world experience, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the next section is basically what we call kind of thought leadership. But essentially, we'll discuss a few different ideas within AI, just get your thoughts on them and kind of take it from there. I know from speaking to you before, something that you're quite interested or passionate about is the application of AI. So I guess I'll flip the question and ask it, what do you think is the biggest opportunity that we haven't really tapped into yet of AI going forward?
It will be the personalization of AI. So for every use case that you have, there should be a personalized AI to help you navigate this without effort into defining what you need. Now, right now, there is the definition of giving a context to the AI. So you tell AI, if let's say that you want to evaluate CVs, you have posted a job and then you received probably 500 applications. You need an AI in order to help you navigate that. Now you should tell AI in order to make it accurate, just like you do it personally, you need to give AI more information about yourself and asking AI to act as you. As Jazz, this is what I do, this is how I evaluate candidates, this is what I look for in a CV, and then you start giving examples. And based on that context, you will get more accurate results in filtering CVs. Now, if you want to do that for every single thing, you can define it for a Python developer, and you can define it for a DevOps engineer. But if you are doing other jobs and having posted more with your experience, you can cover, let's say, 100 job titles. You need to give that context of every single one. Ideally, there would be your own clone AI.
Does
that
mean,
can learn from your experience and start applying that?
Does that mean that you can then theoretically add your own bias to an AI?
Yes.
To a model?
Yes, we can.
Which is what people are trying to use it to avoid.
Yeah.
How do you avoid that?
One of these solutions, I'm not sure if this would work or not, but if you get multiple point of views in that,
fine,
then you ask, let's say that you have trained 10 people, AI on the data of 10 people, and then the accumulated results of 10 people would probably be less biased rather than just one point of view.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, that, isn't it? Because, like, you've got, obviously, I don't know how many AI engineers there are in the world, right? But you can assume maybe like 100,000, 150,000, whatever. Yeah. But, like, their collective bias will be the collective bias that AI holds, which will have massive sway going forward. And there's no real way to, like, control that necessarily. It's just a byproduct.
But it's not trained on the engineers, it's trained on the data set, right? So it doesn't matter what the engineers are doing, it matters more what the data that it's being trained on is saying. So if the data is biased that you're training your model on, then by proxy your model becomes biased anyway, right?
It is, but I think let's go back to the definition of bias. Like, some people will find your view totally fine, will find mine biased, and vice versa. So who is saying this is biased or not? You need like a huge amount of data to decide. And I don't know if this data is available. Who is controlling what is biased or not?
Yeah.
And it's one of the probably toughest topics when it comes to AI.
Yeah.
Because after all, this AI is not thinking. The data is whatever we produce to tell AI how to act and how to reason. So AI is not biased, data is.
Yes, yeah. Because then it kind of boils down to sort of what's true and what's false. And if you're fundamentally training it on something that isn't correct, you end up with incorrect results, regardless of what you do and how good an engineer you are.
I guess that leads quite nicely then, because obviously you spoke about the opportunity, and I guess the opportunity is hyper-personalization going forward in all aspects of life. What do you think is the biggest risk or threat of AI going forward?
The data again, because like we always want to be better and improve. But if AI is just learning what we are doing right now, then there is no improvement. AI will just stick with that learning. So keep updating the AI with whatever we learn and how we become better, then AI will just be as good as the training data that we are providing. And that's for now. I don't know how the future will be with AI when we reach the super intelligence, where maybe AI will reach a point of having its own ideas.
So
That would
you're
be the challenge, because it's not something that we ever know.
you're talking about conscious AI now.
Skynet.
iRobot.
Yeah, exactly right. I think it's interesting though, because you look at the way that we're talking about kind of the next step in AI, and kind of what's next, and kind of, where does that progression kind of come from? My thought process, if we're reliant too heavily on AI, do we still need those creative things? Because it's kind of like the photography industry, right? The photography industry, obviously, with generative AI, people kind of moan about, oh, it's photography's not dead at all, because it's a different way of doing things. It's a different kind of there's different kind of creative styles and everything else that goes with it. Does it still need those people that are creating kind of, whether it's code, music, film, art, whatever, to further the space before AI can catch up with it and continue to automate for the masses? How does that work?
Of course, we still need data in order to improve the AI, and that's where data is coming from. The next step after getting enough data for the AI, because right now there are challenges about the copyrights.
Yeah.
Some companies like Stack Overflow started like being conscious about data had been scraped to train AI, and then all of a sudden you don't really need Stack Overflow. You can ask ChatGPT and get the answer.
Yeah.
Same happened with Reddit.
Yeah.
Reddit has applied, like, API is not free anymore.
Yeah.
From Reddit, you need to pay for it, because companies basically scrape Reddit in order to get the data to train AI. And so when we pass that stage of having the data ready for AI, enough data, then there'll be the synthetic data.
Okay.
AI will start producing its own data variations and learning from these.
How does AI produce its own? What do you mean by produce its own data variations?
So right now, with ChatGPT, you can generate text that is some kind of novel that's not been written before. Not to like a large amount of data, but there is a starting point, and this will just keep improving.
What would you say is obviously, as someone who's transitioned their career multiple times, obviously you've transitioned into AI, but for like a normal person day to day, what would you think is the best way, or what would you say is the best way to prepare for like AI becoming a day-to-day part of everyone's life?
I think starting with the boring tasks that has been done every day, and see how can AI help you to just overcome them or automate them. Because when you do that, you have more time for yourself to be more creative and do the things that will actually add value, rather than just normal boring tasks that has actually no value.
Outside of obviously your day-to-day job, because you use AI every day probably, how have you used AI in your own life in terms of automation? Are there any things is there any tools that you do use?
One of the tools that I've been using for almost 10 months right now is GitHub Copilot for coding.
Interesting.
And has been really good help. And to be honest, it's one of the services that I cannot live without anymore.
This raises an interesting question, and what I've asked before. You hire engineers, and engineers are now able to use AI to code and to build things a lot faster than they would. How do you feel about using AI in an interview scenario?
This is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right there yet.
Okay.
Because with interviews, I don't know, like I don't really much focus on the technical skills more than the personal ability to learn and adapt, and how did they solve a certain problem and like before. And That's not really related to coding. Coding is really easy. It's the easiest part. The hardest part is what is the right decision to define
Right.
this
Okay.
platform, and what is the right tool to use, and what is the thought process in reaching that conclusion.
So
I
it's
don't
the
think AI would
underlying
be able to do
principles.
that. Yeah,
Interesting.
it's kind of it's personal. It's not like yes, no answer.
Because I think we discussed this previously, and it came out that I think it moves that starting point, or your ability to kind of where you're going to start to put your own flair and your own thought processes around a piece of software or around a piece of code. But it moves that start point from 0 to maybe 40, 50, 80% down the road, so you can then finesse and create and kind of and fine tune. Is it you said? I mean, you said you use GitHub Copilot on a day-to-day basis. Is that to save you time? Is it because there's sometimes you get a bit of creative block and you don't know how to solve a problem? What's the
Saving time and sometimes getting ideas as well.
yeah.
So yeah, this is the kind of function I want to write right now.
Yeah.
I have something in mind, and then I ask Copilot to write it for me. If I get something better, it's something new that I learn.
Yeah.
If not, then I know this is probably the optimal solution for now.
That's an interesting point, actually, to think that you're using AI to teach yourself how to code, despite the fact it's doing it for you. That you're still, and I think that sort of takes the kind of full circle. That if you can utilize it sensibly and responsibly, rather than trying to shortcut the system and trying to just use it to build you blindly, anything that you think is that's going to come out of the as a result. I think there's an opportunity for people to actually use it to learn and better themselves as engineers, and to understand a wider problem set because they have the tool at their fingertips.
I was just going to say that is the key, really, right? Like AI it's a tool, but it's not going to be the be all and end all. It all depends on the user.
Yeah.
I guess I was going to ask a question. Up until now, obviously, you say going forward, do you think hyper personalization is the best application of AI? What do you think's like the best so far, the biggest impact of AI within tech so far? Or like, what are the best use cases of AI so far?
I think it's the kind of brainstorming. Because if you have an idea and you start talking to GPT-4 or ChatGPT or any other model, really, it's sometimes you have an idea but you don't know how to express it. And that's for me as an engineer, this is my daily struggle. I know how to talk to machines, but not to humans. So that was a kind of good brainstorming for me. Like, this is my idea. How would I explain it? Or give me the pain points for something that I have in mind. And then once I start reading, it's kind of, this is again personalization. I gave a use case, I received some results. I can ask AI to iterate, or I can have my own thinking based on everything that I read.
That is actually, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, do you find, obviously, as a CTO within a kind of scaling organization, do you find that it helps kind of with sort of team kind of brainstorming sessions and kind of working with the guys and kind of allowing them to sort of explore different avenues to solving problems as well?
No, I don't use it with the team.
Okay,
I use it like personally.
Okay, fine. Interesting. Why?
With the team, it has to be personal.
Okay.
So there is this human interaction that you cannot really replace with AI. I don't think AI will reach that point.
But do you so when, let's say, you're kind of sitting down and working at kind of the solution to a problem with the team, is that something that you'll do kind of without any AI involved at all? Gotcha. Okay,
Still
fine.
doing it in a human way.
The old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way.
Cool. So last part is, I guess, the more fun part rather than, well, hopefully this has all been fun, but few kind of short questions, quick answer response. One of the questions I have is, what's the best piece of advice you've given and that you've ever got?
Trust the process.
I like that. Why is that the best one?
I always had in mind, like, when I want to achieve something, there is a timeline for it, and if I pass that timeline, I failed. While in reality, it's all been a learning journey, and it takes a long time to realize that every single learning or failure or achievement is just building blocks for something bigger. So just work hard and trust the process.
Yeah, I like that, actually. That's a good one. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned within as being a CTO, or being like in a leadership position for that matter? Your biggest learning?
Biggest learning is it doesn't get easier. You just get better.
I guess if it gets better, then at least you can take it easier, right? What's one thing you like to do to escape from work outside of family? 'Cause obviously- Cycling.
Yeah.
Nice. How far can you cycle in one go?
Well, I did the 100 miles last year, July last year.
100 miles.
Ride London 100 miles, and I did it without training, which was something really crazy to do.
How do you cycle 100 miles? I
don't
reckon
know.
I struggle at 5.
I use an electric bike to go 30 mile on holiday, so yeah. I'm not lying.
For those that are maybe in AI or in engineering, what do you think is the one language or one thing they should learn? One thing you'd recommend?
I would say just keep an eye on the market, what's evolving, because tools are coming and going in a really fast pace right now. So sticking to one platform or one language, I don't think this will help in the long term. So just keep an eye on the market.
Cool. Okay, last one before we ask our adventure question. This is more for me. Are you much of a reader?
Yes, but not for books, to be honest. It's mainly online, like blogs and...
Okay, what's one resource that you use to keep up to date with the tech world that you would recommend to people?
Hacker News.
Hacker News.
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. Last question, our adventure question. Hypothetically speaking, you've got unlimited capital, right? We're a venture capitalist firm and you've got unlimited capital. What is the one problem that you would try to solve or that you would create a business around?
Find a cure to cancer.
Yes, yeah. Probably a good one to end
Yeah,
on then.
yeah.
Thank you very much
All good.
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
It's really good to see you, man. It's been a while.
See you soon.
Thanks for watching this episode of the Adventure into Tech podcast. Please like, share and subscribe and let us know what you thought in the comments.